Plus 1,000 tick. Okay. Straddle. Straddle's at 31. I'm just gonna carry 33. 33 takes us to 120. Straddle 120. 33. 70. 50. Yeah, 70, 51. YM is on a rocket ship right now. YM is on a rocket ship, NQ is headed down. So whenever YM finds a ceiling, or when NQ finds a pivot, we'll go up. YM finds a ceiling. We could head down. 30 minutes. Kind of like the downside here. I like it to the centroid. It's about 30 points away. The risk is also about 25 points. So I'm not in favor of it. VIX is gapping up and open. I want to get in front of this freight train yet. Points. Could be a stop loss. I am a little biased down. Maybe a slight run up, run down to about maybe 10:30 to 11 o'clock. 71.10. What's the high? No, 71.10 is the high overnight or pre-market. Okay. We're sold. Let's see what happens here. See where YM goes, because that could be critical. Leave that YM. JI. Alright, maybe another 150 points. But we're kind of in that influence zone now. He's on a rocket ship. SPX, same rocket ship. 7110. Let's see here, 7105. See where we go from here. Side pivot is 7108. 7100 should hold this thing down. And we're already at 7100. Only if price drifts up via oscillation before 2 p.m. Otherwise, 7100 will trap it. However, once it breaks, target is very magnetic. Question is, are we gonna break? Just 35. $7,100. I'm not seeing much there. Fix isn't coming off. It's driving up. Yeah. Doesn't seem like it. IM is giving up its gains now. This should get interesting. This should be the daily. And if it's the daily, an 85 underneath. It's basically where we opened, 70.85. Still trying to cap at 7,100 here. $71.05 high. Potentially. 71.08. Should be kind of spill over. Funky price action to start. $7,100 and 71.08. Pushing around a centroid with an upside drift. Secondary bet is break of upside pit. And third is the break of downside and stabilizer. That should be interesting if it does happen. All right, there's some ball there. If we can get to the centroid, that'd be ideal, but it's got to break through 85 or 90 first. Once it breaks through 90, it can run to 75. 75, 70. 75, 70 is going to be tough on the break. Let's run this down to 75 based on this cluster here. There's a negative gamma cluster or negative strike cluster between 70, 90 and 70, 75. You could push down to 70. Looking okay. The VWAP could bounce it, so I'm going to be a bit wary here. I'm going to move my stop loss to break even. Yeah, just like that. Boom. Brutal. VIX doing? VIX is back up there. Could have taken it at VWAP. Dang it. So a bit of SMT at the bottom there. I think I want to take this, because we're hanging out at 7,100, just under 7,100. Ideally, we get a little bit higher. I'll come up to about 9:50, 11 o'clock. Scalp this. $70.63. 70.60. Oh, 70.60 looks like a decent landing spot. Let me get in here. Trough. Gamma trough. So once we cross over the gamma trough, the speed kind of flips. Or not kind of, the speed does flip. 1 hour doji would be perfect. The VIX, it looks like it's starting to come off a little. I might want to fill that gap. If it does, then we might ride up this 7108. Maybe get another 8 points to there. No news at 10. It's really just headline and OPEX related. The upside pivot. Anything looks still bullish except NQ. Could head up towards 7010 or 7110. Upside pivot 7108. Pivot can only be broken if price drifts up via oscillation before 2 p.m. Otherwise, 7100 will trap it. Once it breaks targets, is very magnetic. Great break. If it breaks, looks like it could be a 1 hour doji. Pretty darn close to the upside pivot. 7100 is still holding. Oh, hey, Koshik. Trying to get a beat on this market. AM expiration caused that massive move up this morning. Now, just trying to figure out if I want to short. Tried to short earlier and then it came right back to my stop loss. My break-even stop loss. I wasn't willing to hold that one. I probably should have taken the 15 points it gave. Not quite 15 points. I think it was like 13 points it gave me. And bounced right off of VWAP and set up a divergence between ES and NQ at the lows there on the 5 minutes. Should have known to close it, but it happened really quickly while I was looking at something else. But a straddle today was about 31. I'd run with 32. Just between 928, which was 33, and then 931, which was 31. So it kind of had the straddle set at a high of a high of 71.20-ish, and then a low of 70.50 based on the open. Again, it's not an exact science, but it gives you an idea of what has been priced in. AM is still climbing up pretty good. And on a day like today, there's a fund called, I believe, QYLD, and it rebalances at about 11:30 to about 1 o'clock. And during the rebalance, it often sells or prior to 11:30. But the flows are just so strong. It's insane. Massive sell limit order at 71.45. Do you watch Bookmap? I forget. I might have asked that already, but or have you ever used Bookmap? Not seeing much in the way here besides the orders that you're referencing. YM is still running. But NQ is still holding everything back. Yeah, I'm curious if you ever use Bookmap, because that's also an order flow tool, but it's visualized in the form of a heat map. How do you like it relative to the imbalances on the footprint chart? Yeah, so basically you're saying there's still quite a bit of noise on Bookmap. All right, so I don't have much up here to kind of go off of. 120, 5 volume increasing. I see no reason to sell here. Yeah, I agree. I don't have much to go off of right now. It's nothing high probability for me anyways. It's kind of shocking to me how strong this up move has been. I'm just reading the chat from Alma's Substack, and she's saying she's just starting to take profit from her March longs that she took. Her major target was 71.54, but that's the first I've kind of heard of that. I know she was her thesis was that would get a nice bounce. I don't know that she knew whether or not we'd go to all-time highs and above, but I think she was just playing the dailies, and she's her daily thesis that she writes up every morning. So she had no reason to sell, really. So she just kept on holding. It's also really hard just to take a long and just hold. But that divergence at the lows, where I probably should have closed my short position instead of let it break even stop loss, would have been a good reason to go long, to flip long, but it's hard. Based on your metrics, are we in positive gamma or negative gamma? Just curious where that flip might be. $21.30 ES ODT gamma flip right now. Okay. This up move was initiated by JPM caller, if I remember correctly. Yeah, that's right. Because as soon as that expired, everything just went. Yeah, Monday 30th was a low. 31st was the collar expiration. And then it kind of went up and down a little, but it just rocketed from there. And it's been pretty low volume from what I've seen and what I've heard people say. Which I guess suggests that this has been a massive short squeeze and that hedge funds aren't necessarily levering long, but more so cutting their shorts. Now today is an OPEX 2, and expiration was 2 days ago. So things would generally clear up then too. So we'll kind of see how everything reacts here. So I think ES is hitting some sort of trend line. Maybe. No, wait, let me see. No, sorry. ES is not hitting a trend line. SPX already bust through the trend line that I drew. 130. Yes. It's quite a bit lower. That's basically where the POC is. Personally, I wanted to see a drift down at some point leading into 1130. And then a positive drift up again after that. Yeah, I got a Discord. You can use it should be Rock and Grom. ROCKNGROM. Yeah. I just got it. Pretty neat. As volume dried up, discount area, stop loss. Yes. Because you entered, I'm just looking at the second image there. You entered on the 855 candle, or 855.04 candle. Hey, what is this? Oh yeah, okay. And then it went a bit lower. How'd you set your stop loss? Was it just fixed? Price reverse is 5 points in the zone. I want to enter. I will enter there and keep my stop below those 5 points. Interesting. I like how strict you are with your entries and your plays. $71.30, yeah, $71.30 on SPX. Probably magnetic, as Alma was saying. 20 ticks, 5-point range chart used by many pros, so I came with that entry technique. That's awesome. And YM is on a rocket ship right now. Holy cow. Gamma flip changed to 7100 on ES, right? So that's no longer at 130. Wow, it's quite the adjustment. So we are in positive gamma, correct? I found a way to get the same or similar charts to you using NinjaTrader. I mean, they're virtually the same platform between Trade-Evade and NinjaTrader, since they're owned by the same company, or they are the same company now. But reading it is like next level. I just have a hard time believing we're going to straight line to 130 right now. And I think we just got that nice divergence. But I don't really want to short this either. Like picking up pennies in front of a steamroller. But the magnet could be that 7130, 7140 area where it gets more, I guess, more deep positive gamma. 7125, 7140. It's all possible. Seems to be where it wants to drift to. I see you just sent something. Sorry, I don't like regularly check Discord. Well, I leave it at on ball signals just in case there's like an update that I need to look at, but it's not always like my most dominant window, if you will. So apologies for that. Zero gamma, 7130. Interesting to see that you're saying it's flipping back and forth between 7100 and 7130. Would you, using your model, would you have gone long anywhere today? Yeah, so Vol Signals is saying that skew is getting pummeled today with 1 month and 3 month both down sharply, suggesting that this is in fact an unstable part of the dealer profile. The crushing of skew helping keep a lid on VIX. But I would expect VIX strike today to be strongly bid, especially on the call side. So he's expecting spot up, fall up. Or fixed strike vol. So not necessarily what we'll see with VIX futures and VIX alone. Oh no, I meant would you have gone long anywhere earlier today? Like since market open, based on your model. Yeah, I'm finding it really tough to find a long anywhere because oftentimes we're gapping up. And when we're gap up, we're like, it's not much data there. And then on top of that, um, I like to play reversions. So getting on trend, jumping into a trend is very challenging for me, especially if it's a gap up. Because it didn't even retest the gap, really. I think YM filled a gap of it. Dow Jones, DJI. Unless Dow Jones is going for all-time highs. It's the one main lagging index right now. Also, there's some people that follow the straddle, but from a overnight perspective. So like they follow the overnight straddle. So basically on SPX close at 4 p.m., they'll look at the 1DT, so the next day's expiration, and record the at the money premium there. And that would be your overnight straddle. I think Yamco is one that normally does that. I'm just gonna double check. I didn't record it, so I have no idea what it was. Overnight straddle was 38 points. So technically the overnight straddle would have priced in a 70-79 SPX move. So 70-80. And we blasted way through that. So I think this is why it's so hard to trade this. Because straddles are being mispriced. I mean, which means they're paying if you take a straddle. Well, hard to say. I actually don't think it'll pay you. Well, today's might pay you, but yeah, in order to get paid, you need to double one side of the straddle, because you when you take a straddle, you take both sides of a trade. So for instance, if we use the morning straddle, 70-80 or 70-84 is the open, 30 points up takes you to, or 33 points up takes you about 71.20, and we're kind of there right now. So that's in profit, but the other side of the straddle is losing. The put side of the straddle is losing. So you essentially need it to, well, if you're going to hold it to the end of the day, you would need the price to, or the straddle to double on one side, or the price action to double the straddle on one side. So if the straddle is expecting a 30-point move, you need 60 points from there in order to break even on the straddle. Or, yeah. Let me think this through. Yeah, that's correct. You need it to double to break even on the play. Assuming you're holding to end of day, of course. But yeah, I got nothing here. It's almost like watching this drift up. Actually, can't even call this a drift up, because it was a rocket in the morning for the AM expiration hedging. Even Vol Signals kind of had his call a bit off. He was thinking 70.55 and then possibly 70.75, but we blasted through that, and I think we ended up at like 70.90. Mind you, we hit 70.10 prior to open today, 71.10. So this move is like, seems to be catching everyone off guard. There are some people that are able to jump in on a long, like strategically, and accepting the risks. Not sure how they're doing that, but I'm seeing people post about it. So we're at Alma's upside target here at 71.30, which she called to be magnetic. But right now, I think I'm seeing a move to potentially 71.35, 71.40 on SPX. So about another 10 points, 10 points. Seems to be getting in the way. Next 70. Yeah, 71.40 has 9,800 positions. And you want to see PM expiration, so that way we don't get the AM. $71.40. Am I not seeing it? What's wrong here? Positions. Am I using the wrong positioning? Specific 71.40. Oh, I see. Not using an intraday model. All right, 71.40. So we got calls, short calls here. Customer short calls, 9,700 positions. Which kind of, I would expect a cap of some sort at 71.40. But yeah, I would have to think if we were to see any downside, it would have to be after OPEX, obviously. There's no major JPM caller this month. There is a JPM caller of some sort. It's just not as big as the quarterly ones. Which I think we can see here. Sec. So 71.30, you can kind of see there's large positioning. But yeah, I'm not unfamiliar with the, like, I don't really track the April 30th caller because it's so small. It is big relative to all other positions, but it's not big enough like the quarterly JPM caller to really talk about it from that perspective. I agree. I try my best to stay out of Twitter because Twitter, everyone is posting like green days every day and they're showing how well they're doing. I realize that everyone has their own process to this and it's okay to see a red day. But those guys, I know a few guys that do have green days almost every day. And when they get a red day, it's a massive red day as a result because they're just not used to taking a red day. It's understandable. But yeah, like the market is all about sniping your entry models, right? And then it plays out to whatever your percentage, your win rate is over time. Yeah, I would agree. Like I didn't have a good beat on the market for like first 2 months. like from a daily perspective. From a swing perspective, I like the downside. And at that point I did play downside. I played puts and did take profit on those puts. So like swinging is definitely like my go-to. But when it comes to day trading and getting a beat from a day-to-day perspective, and also kind of playing or trying to limit yourself to very specific entry models, I personally find that challenging. And then seeing people like Alma, who's been long since the end of March, and she's been holding and she just took profit now. It's insane. Like that's such a huge W. Like that's like 700 points, 800 points, depending on where she entered. But she didn't really advertise where she entered because it's not like a signal service. But she did give us a heads up that, and she's been tweeting about it too, that she's been expecting an upside move. I don't think she expected this magnitude of an upside move, but she was able to hold it through through the entire move anyways, or most of the move anyways. Mainly because I'm guessing that her model was suggesting that she shouldn't sell, or she shouldn't close out her trade. And then the guys like Forrest and Saul, they play higher time frames too. So it's all about holding overnight, getting really good entries, and just holding. But they do very well because of that. And sticking to like the 1 hour charts and stuff. That's what they do. Right, so YM should start stalling around here based on the high volume node. Right now, I think I'm holding. I got into UNH, NVO, and MOH. And the only one, well, they're playing out, but they're just not as good as like the big tech stocks. And these are just stock plays. They're not option plays, because I didn't anticipate such a massive move so quickly. I was expecting to hold these longer term, but like UNH is doing very well, so I'm not upset about that. But I find that taking swing trades are definitely a lot easier. I mean, it's hard to buy at the lows, but when you're not like over leveraging, it's much easier. And they're all healthcare stocks. What's interesting is that VIX is actually pushing up here. So ever since 10 o'clock, we've been actually climbing up with only one slight pause, but even then it wasn't really, it was like a 10-point range for about 10-15 minutes. But the VIX is climbing up, and we're back at 17.8. Right, was that the 71.36 rejection? Okay, that was between 35 and 40, which I think when we were sitting at 71.30, I was looking for a rejection at around between 5 to 10 points above. I think we're there, and we're getting a decent rejection, especially because YM hit its high volume node there. So I'm tracking it on a 4-hour basis, and basically having price up until December 19th-ish. Having the volume profile tracked up to December 19th, and we're at a high volume node, or it's actually the POC of the area that I'm tracking. And we should spend a little bit of time here, or reject a little. And then grind into 71.40 maybe to end the day. But we'll see. I got no bets on, so. And we kind of hit that gamma peak too on OptionsDepth. There's no gamma peak showing here. Oh, so if you're looking at my screen, it's worth paying attention to what you see here. This is the gamma chart, and one includes AM expiration and the other only the PM expiration. So AM expires around like 9:15, 9:20, which is why you see this weird action here. So one of the things that I do, and that they basically tell us to do, is when you use the breakdown by strike to only select the PM expiration, because oftentimes a lot of services include the OI or all ODT, and it would include both of these, the AM and the PM expiration, which kind of skews everything, right? They look quite a bit different. All right, so VIX just dumped, which is interesting. Didn't anticipate that happening. Yeah, on ES, right? Yeah, it's kind of the perfect spot to sell because you have YM at the high volume node. So it kind of hit this massive block. And I would assume there's orders there too on YM. $15-minute doji on NQ. And then also ES kind of hit this that 7140 influence area. Or sorry, not ES, SPX. So we're finally going to get a pullback. I don't know if it'll be much of a pullback. We might just drop 10 points to value area high at the very most. It's hard to fade this. I've seen that VIX dump. I didn't anticipate that at all. Like VIX went down when SPX went down. Makes no sense to me. Let's see if ES can hold this. and YM. I feel like VIX has to come down a little bit more too, towards 17.22. There's a gap there. A gap there that I'm watching. But it's odd because if I'm expecting VIX to go down, I'd expect ES to go up, right? Like uncorrelated between, or they're supposed to be inversely correlated, but now they're correlated between VIX and SPX. Just on a 5-minute time frame. Thank you. It looks like it's still headed up. I think NQ's all-time high is like right here. And I should try to sweep in theory. Mind you, it's an NQ adjusted value. So I don't know how much impact that has. NDX, no, NDX blasted through already. So between YM's high volume node and that NQ level, we might have just found some decent resistance. And YM is also an adjusted level, so there were times that I struggled with the ICT stuff, um, and there like I think my a few of my trading buddies also kind of pushed me towards VP because they found quite a bit more success with it. The ICT stuff, um, there were I definitely had a lot more dry spells with it. So like I can go through a longer period of time where I would struggle to even pass an account. But don't get me wrong, I still like the way ICT tells the story. And he do use some of his models. But before, I used to trade strictly like, I don't even think it was IFVG at the time. It was probably the silver bullet trade or the unicorn trade, however. With VP, well, I find that with ICT, if VP aligns, it'll work out nicely. And there's something to be said about, like, because I track 3 different indices. So I track YM, NQ, and ES. And I track the VP on them too on a higher time frame. So like today, for instance, I think I've been saying that, yeah, YM is approaching its high volume node or the POC. And it approached it, and all it took was NQ to kind of run up towards that 26,864 level, which is its contract adjusted all-time high, and it's met with resistance. Then you also have the 7140 on OptionsDepth that seems to be holding things like down, if you will. Like it was going to be very tough for price action to get above 7140 without rejecting off of it first and maybe oscillating a little bit. And it could be the pin at the end of the day. But this is why I like to track all these things, because the stars kind of align a little. When YM and NQ diverges, it becomes a little bit challenging to know which direction ES might go. But it's funny because NQ is just leaving that all-time high shy. The contract adjusted all-time high, that is. But with ICT, I think there were some guys on Twitter that suggested looking at the higher time frame helps out quite a bit. And I think it does. But I never got a good beat of it on a higher time frame, because like fair value gaps can be pretty large on a higher time frame. So it can bounce anywhere within that fair value gap, which is, again, another reason why I liked BP. It was more defined. Like I'd say VP is pretty consistent, higher time frame, lower time frames. But when it comes to the higher time frames, definitely pay attention to like these edge of nodes, where the high volume node are and where the low volume nodes are. And you draw them in and you're like, okay, these are my levels. And when it gets around here, I'm going to consider certain things. Mind you, this move up is insane. Like, you just don't get in front of it. Like, I don't think any VP really helped for trying to successfully short this up move. Like, I think a lot of people wait for a candle formation to form on like a higher volume candle of some sort. So they wouldn't wait for like if they're looking at a 4-hour chart, you wouldn't look at volume. You wouldn't look at candles on a 2 o'clock overnight or 10 o'clock overnight and expect us to reject based off of that. You'd wait for basically a regular trading hour 4-hour candle to form that's favorable. When I say favorable, it'll be like a doji or some sort of wick, and it has to be high volume. And once you see that and it happens to be off your volume profile level, then that would be the perfect time to play that reversal trade. And then the rest of it is trade management, right? All right, let's see if NQ can sweep this 864 level. I also see guys play something so simple as like the opening range balance, opening balance range, or orb. And some of them use the 1 hour, some of them use the 15-minute opening range. And it's basically the first 15 minutes is your opening range. And then if we bounce off of it, you play the other direction. I have no idea how they manage it, but I've never really liked that trade style. Yeah, there's the opening range breakout, and then there's other people that play like almost like a rejection, like they play the range. But there are times when the breakout kind of sucks. Like I've seen people lose on a very consistent basis when they try to play the breakout. But yes, thank you. Initial balance. Thank you. ES1 is the front month contract, and then ES2 is the next month. So for instance, if you open it, ES1 right now tracks ESM 2026, which is the June expiration. And then ES2 would technically track the ESU 2026, I believe. So 7217 ESU 2026. Yeah, that's correct. So ES1 always tracks the front month contract. And it rolls that week of, so it rolls March on that second week. I think second to third week, depending on which platform you use. That's when it rolls. I often like to kind of confirm that the volume has shifted to the next month's contract in order to actually start trading that next month. Yeah, so what I'm seeing here is even on, so are you saying 7150 ES? Like downside? Okay, okay. Where the POC is. Okay. Yeah, it's very possible. It's just a nasty grind. Like I really don't want to play this. Have you ever tried initial balance or opening range at all? Opening range breakout? Just curious. Yeah, 9:30 to 10:30. Yeah, that makes sense. $9:30 to 10:30. So if we're tracking SPX, that first hour, I mean, it broke out. It's a pretty good opening range break. Yesterday, garbage. Or initial balance, sorry. I guess opening range is more like 15 minutes. So I've seen some people use 5 minutes. I've never really liked the opening range just because, well, I didn't quite study it enough to understand how to use it. I think that's the reason why I didn't like it. Draw fib with quarter increments and take partials along the way. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Have you ever tried it? Like, to trade it yourself? Yeah, that's fair. I I think that was also another reason why I moved to VP, because I'm watching these guys trade VP, and they were collecting like hundreds of NQ points, like from basically one node to the next, or one volume profile edge to the next. And I was like, man, and here I am scalping maybe 5-10 points at the very most. So I've always been trying to make it a thing to hold a little longer, but only if the setup allows it, obviously. Holy smokes. VIX is down. It's just plummeting right now. We're at 16.94. Yeah, I agree. Like, I think this is like a clear out event. Except I don't know if a pullback would happen anytime soon, but I would like any OPEX would be like the best time for price to kind of turn around, or the behavior of the market to kind of change. So after today, I would expect the behavior of the market to change. a little. But yeah, a lot of people got squeezed out of their shorts. Normally a decent time to enter puts, but I think I'm gonna wait for, like, I tried a I think I tried entering puts, and those are gonna die, the ones that I've already entered. But that's because I didn't wait, and I was just trying to like jump ahead and front run everything. But I have zero signal right now as to when the market would reverse. And normally it would be like a vol based signal that I normally wait for. Yeah, I remember that too. It's so crazy because I know there's like devaluation of the currency that's happening, but macro wise, things are just not great. It's actually pretty bad. So I kind of find it nuts that we're sitting at 7,100 plus right now on SPX. Yeah, that's right. I do remember them increasing margin requirements. All right. There's NQ running up. Let's see what NQ does now. It's a very interesting look on the gamma chart. Like, there is room for us to just rocket through this. So when you said 7150, I thought you meant SPX. And I was like, hey, that's not a bad take because it's pretty much consistent with potential landing spots, 7150 and even 7175 ish. Mind you, positioning has obviously changed since then, but I like to still follow the daily. But there is some localized negative gamma here, though not that high. But if we enter it, can definitely see a spool. Like the price action just spool up. And 7140 came off quite a bit. I mean, it used to be sitting around almost like 9,000. Now it's just at 4,900. So whoever is short there, short calls, they're collecting premium there. And it seems that those are coming off. Either coming off or actually, I can check. $71.40. Yeah, the short calls are coming off. Customer short calls coming off. So it's not being offset by puts being or calls being bought up or something like that. Instead, the shorts are just being bought back because, well, they might see the risk here of losing a shit ton of money if price goes up. But I won't be getting in front of this steam train, because with negative gamma just above, it can just rocket through, which we've seen a number of weeks back, I believe. And that fund that's rebalancing, in theory, between 11:30 to about 1 o'clock, you get positive flows. But we've been getting positive flows all day. So it's obviously not that fund that's rebalancing is not driving the market today, because there's a crap ton of flows that are coming elsewhere. And I noticed it as soon as we started pumping up. Normally between 10 to about 10:45, maybe even 11 o'clock, you get a nice like pressure, like whether it be selling or consolidating. The price action generally drifts down, sometimes spools down, because people are trying to front run the trade to some degree. So the market generally sells and then buys up. But this time it just bought up. I mean, you got a little bit of consolidation between 11:50 to 11:30. And in theory, you should get some upward movement again. More passive stuff. It just depends on all the other flows. Because if you think about it in terms of like flow A, flow B, flow C, things kind of like come together. The only problem is you can't really tell what those flows are unless you're being told by some dude from Wall Street, right? Which is vol signals for me. Except he doesn't work on Wall Street anymore. He used to work in the Chicago side, and he worked as a market maker. And POC climbed all the way up here. Yeah, typically NQ should find some resistance here. Sporadic movement there. The heat map. Are you looking at this table here? Give me one sec. Let me refresh it. Hopefully you're referring to this table. Is there a very specific expiration or strike you would like to see? Or something you want me to hover over? What does 7150 tell you? 7150 SPX? So you'd look at SPXW, which is the, they call that, this is the PM expiration. I think SPXW stands for weekly. it's no longer weekly because it's a daily expiration now. So it's kind of funny. But 7150, this is the market maker side. So they are short calls for the most part. So they're short calls. That means the customer is long calls here, betting for upside. But it's kind of like a cluster, a huge like mess over here between this. This used to be 9,000, right? And now it's dropped to 4,000. And it's dealer longs. No ODT one. First column. Oh, disregard the first column because that's the AM expiration. That's no longer there. So it was there this morning, up until 9:15, 9:20, which is when the AM contracts expire. So I believe those are called European style contracts where they expire, well, the morning of. Very odd, right? But those were the original options. But it basically says customers are long calls here. 7,900. In case you're wondering anyways. But this has expired away. It no longer has any influence. Which is why you kind of see this mess. So here's your 7150. And you see how it expires at around 9:15 and it shifts over to the new contract. This was your 7150 influence. 7160 on the second column. Dealers are short. So this is like a negative gamma position or negative gamma kind of impact. 16,000 positions. So that means customers are long calls there. They're betting on upside. But you almost have to look at this as a whole. And where that the impact that this has, you can see on the gamma chart, which I'll go back to here. And this is it. This is that same area that you're talking about, from 7140 to 7160. So if I just sorry, it's hard to tell based on this, but I go 7,000, and then you bounce this up to 200 because the legend was in the way. You can kind of see these are the large positionings you're looking at right here. 4,000 positions that are dealer longs. And then you have 7155 also dealer longs. And then you have this massive 16,000 positions at 7160, which are dealer shorts, which is an influence. Like all that combines to look like this negative gamma position. So if we bounce into that and decisively, so if we bounce over 7140, we could see it spool up to the top of this negative gamma range. If customers are buying good volume of calls at 7160, does that mean we have a breakout? Not necessarily. Oftentimes, I find that when there are customer long calls or long puts, it often confines the market to those long calls and puts, believe it or not, because they're negative gamma positions. And a lot of times, you've probably seen me track large levels, like, I don't know, Like for instance, this morning, if I go to this morning's level, if I see like just looking at this in general, I'm saying, hey, overnight, I don't expect price action to hit 7,000, and if it does, it's gonna bounce, right? Because I think we closed yesterday at 70-40-ish, 70-40 on SPX. So if we are sitting around here, if we were to run down overnight to 7,000, I would bet like quite a bit of money for upside because it's such a massive position. And then the same thing here. If we ran up to 71.50 overnight for AM expiration, I would bet on, I would bet on downside here. And that's generally how I play rejections when looking at these breakdown by strikes. But all that to say, I do pay attention to the gamma chart and how it looks like. And there are certain things that are worth paying attention to. So, for instance, this was critical, in my opinion. This gamma trough. This is the daily. This is based on the daily, so no intraday updates. And there's a gamma trough here that dealers did not, they have to hedge against this move, I guess. And it just kind of bounced so beautifully off of it. And we got an SMT there too. So in theory, I should have flipped long instead of hold my break-even stop loss. And this is a gamma trough. So you've seen the 3D chart, and this is where gamma would be. Let me see if I can show you that too. It's a gradient. So let's move to 3D. We'll go to the daily. So it isn't that much of a trough. You can kind of see a trough here. This is the trough that we're talking about this morning, I think. Right now it's climbing that gamma wall, that dealer long gamma. But we also see from intraday perspective, things have changed quite a bit, right? So it's very possible that we kind of run into this negative gamma level and just run up, especially because we're kind of messing around here just under that 71.40 influence, and those guys are just closing out their positions from where it started. I think it was around 10,000 positions where it started, and then it went 9,000, and then now it's at 4,800. Charm's role in this, not sure if I mentioned this before, but typically I don't look at Charm until the end of the day because the value of Charm is really low. So for instance, right now you're looking at right now price action is about here, right? So you're looking at a value for Charm at about 35, and you have to multiply that by -2, so that'll give you about -70. So that's how many futures ES positions that the dealers have to sell in order to balance their portfolio or to stay delta neutral. So, and every 5 minutes it's like that. So if 70 ES contracts isn't a lot, right? And you have to multiply it by -2, which is why you get -70. But in the blue, you'll multiply it by -2 and you end up getting like a positive, right? And generally it's supportive. So the orange is the orange yellow is suppressive. It doesn't really play a role until you see that darker or lighter, in this case, the more vibrant colors, until the more vibrant colors hit. So once you start getting here, and as you approach it, dealers start having to buy up like 400 if we're at 400 ES contracts every 5 minutes. And then it keeps on getting higher every 5 minutes in order for them to stay neutral from their positions. So that's what this basically tracks. And the same thing with the negative charm. So over here, if we're sitting under 7160, then we're more likely to settle maybe at 7150, because this is sell pressure and this is buy pressure, right? So oftentimes you want to settle if charm was the only, let's say charm was a dominant factor and the only flow, then you'll start seeing, like, let's say we get to 7150, we start seeing a sell-off here at around 330, and then approaching 7140. And 7140 is kind of where I would think we would end up for the day if we were to pin somewhere around here. If price were to kind of move up, I would expect it to come back down. Yeah, so power hour definitely has a lot of influence from charm. Keep in mind that charm is not the only flow. And if you think flow in terms of like flow A, flow B, flow C, charm does give you slight edge, is what I'll say. But it's worth, there's something to be said about the daily levels. And I find that the daily levels are generally pretty well respected. I'm not sure why, and no one's ever been able to tell me why. Like Vol Signals wasn't able to tell me why. OptionsDepth, they weren't able to tell me why. But I find that the daily positions, not intraday updates, gives us reasonable insight. Yeah, there is Vanna on OptionsDepth. I just don't believe it's modeled very well, and I don't know how to use it. So that's my blind spot. I know Vol Signals models Vanna a little bit different too, from OptionsDepth, and I tend to lean more towards the way OptionsDepth models it. The only problem is I've never seen it, because his subscription is so damn expensive. But yeah, I can show you a Vanna chart. This is how Vanna looks. It doesn't look like anything to me, right? It's just a modeling thing. I think even Alma has her own way of modeling Vanna. Like, for instance, I'm gonna show you yesterday's screenshot that I've been feeding into Claude just to see how it does. A friend of mine has been doing this, and it acts as a magnet from what I learned. Yeah, like, let me see. You give me 1 second here. I'm gonna see what Alma says about Vanna. All right. I don't want to read this for you. It's probably better if you read it yourself. But I'm going to take a screenshot here. Screenshot that when you have a chance and then read through it. This is Alma's explanation of Vanna. And Notebook LM's response. So the AI basically summed it up for me based on Alma's theories. Now I'm going to go to yesterday's gamma charts. I kind of wanted to show you like what the daily looks like. So this is untouched. No intraday positioning changes influence this daily chart. And you can kind of see this gamma trough here. It's a dominant gamma trough. Kind of rejected off of it, 70.40 yesterday. Came down to about 70.10, and I think there was a put spread there that basically held us up. And we broke into this negative gamma range. And we stayed in that negative gamma range up until the end of day, which Claude was able to pick up 70-30 and 70-40 pin towards the end of the day. They were like, this is magnetic. Now, you don't necessarily see it here. I don't see a 70-40. Like, this is 70-40 here. I see 70-35. And here's that 70-10 positioning that basically held us up over here. But I didn't see any 70-40 positioning. So I was wondering how Claude came up with that. And it's very obvious that it was based off this gamma chart. But it was an intraday update also that made it say, hey, I think it was like around here. It was before, so I asked it for an update around 11:50-ish. So it was around here. So price action hasn't even started coming down yet, but it was saying high probability 70-30 pin or 70-40 pin. And the reason why it said 70-30 was very obvious from a charm perspective. 70-40 was less obvious in my opinion. Because this is where charm is likely to sell off and then buy up here, and it should settle somewhere around here in theory, give or take. The Vanna charts, I don't think it's going to say anything because I guess I haven't been training it at all, and also it's unfamiliar with the OD model. So I had something to go off of for Alma, for it to read the gamma charts. Like it basically set precedence, if you will. Give me one sec here. I think this was the intraday update that I provided it, Claude. And it was suggesting that 70-30, 70-40 pin, the only localized positive gamma positioning, which is driven by the 70-35 position. So it's just very, like, the way that Claude has been trained, and I've been asking it to assess itself on a daily basis, but I've only been doing it for 2 days. So my buddy has been doing it for a little bit longer, and essentially ask it for pin plays only. So where is it likely to pin? And it'll tell him, hey, today's not likely to pin based on how the gamma chart looks and the charm chart looks. But he's basically feeding the same thing. Now I think the Vanna, if Vanna, for instance, had shown us some sort of, oh, here, see, I think this is interesting to see. See if Vanna, oh wait, let me close that one down. So for instance, if Vanna, I think when there's a line in the sand is when Vanna truly matters. But haven't been tracking price action relative to Vanna at all. Like, this is this week. I'm just rewinding just to see how Vanna looked. And it's been very one-sided for the most part. I want to see when Vanna hit some sort of flip and see if price is impacted. So far, Vanna has only been in one regime, which is a positive Vanna score on OptionsDepth. Yeah, I'll definitely have to review that later. Like, it never shows any negative Vanna at all. And we're at the deepest part of the sell-off too, or like the first part of the sell-off. Just not seeing anything. Like, Vanna has been saying the same thing, whether it's like highly positive or just a little bit positive. But anyways, that's the last of the history that I got. Yeah, I'm gonna mess around with that after. But now it's climbing that negative gamma wall. But on daily, like, see, on the daily, this makes sense to me. And it would make sense exactly how you explained it one of like the first few times that we spoke on stream. Where in the dark blue, in the positive gamma, you get price action that's trying to move up, but dealers are hedging against it. So you're getting some pullback, and you're getting a lot of that. And then especially as we approach the dark blue, you get more resistance, if you will. Like, I would call these dark blues like a massive call wall, basically. Let me learn. I'm gonna have to learn a lot more about Vanna. But here we're like light positive Vanna. All right, Koshik. Yeah, I'll see you next time. Have a good weekend. I just realized it's Friday today. I gotta research more about Vanna though. A glitch. Interesting.
Oh, before you skip something,